The Emperor Napoleon. Napoleon, the Consul of France, now ruled in Paris. The people of France still had the right to vote, but their votes didn't really matter. Napoleon and his Council of State had all of the power. Napoleon set out to rewrite the ancient, confusing laws of France so that France would be an orderly and law-abiding place. This new law code, the Napoleonic Code, ordered each person to be treated equally by the law, with some exceptions. If an employee had a disagreement with his boss, the boss would always win. And women had no rights at all. Women should stick to knitting, Napoleon observed. Napoleon then set about winning the loyalty of the Catholic Church. He told the Pope that Catholics could worship as they pleased in France, and that France would even pay Catholic priests appointed by the Church, as long as they swore loyalty to Napoleon. The Pope agreed. He also promised to add a new question and answer to the official church teaching, or catechism. Question: what should one think of those who fail to honor the emperor and do their duty to him? Answer: they are resisting the order established by God himself and are earning themselves eternal damnation. Napoleon did not intend for anyone to resist his order. 3 years after becoming consul, Napoleon told his council to make him consul for life. He wrote a constitution that would govern France. But this constitution wasn't like the English or American constitutions. The new French Constitution said that Napoleon could make any laws he wanted, declare wars himself, and decide on France's policies all alone. Napoleon ordered the people to vote on this Constitution. Then he declared that the Constitution had passed 3 million votes to 2,000. Napoleon made up those numbers himself. Napoleon was ready to expand his kingdom over more of Europe. But first, he needed money. So in 1803, he offered all of France's land in North America to the United States. This Louisiana Territory was an enormous piece of land that stretched from the French colony of New Orleans up through the Midwest, through land where Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, and other states now lie, all the way up into Canada. Except for New Orleans, no French settlers lived in this land. Napoleon knew that he wouldn't be able to start colonies and conquer Europe at the same time. So he sold the whole piece to the United States for $15 million. This Louisiana purchase doubled the size of the United States in 1 day. Then Napoleon decided that he should have the title of Emperor, with a right to pass the title on to any heir he chose. So he planned himself a huge coronation ceremony. He sat on a golden throne in the Cathedral of Notre Dame, holding a sword which he claimed had belonged to Charlemagne, the first Holy Roman Emperor. Then he took a golden crown of laurel leaves, put it on his own head, and proclaimed himself Emperor. Now the Emperor Napoleon was ready to conquer an empire for himself. He planned to start with France's old enemy, Britain. France arrested all British citizens in France. The British seized all French ships in British waters. French and British ships prowled the seas, shooting at each other. Meanwhile, Napoleon started to build hundreds of boats on which he could load 150,000 soldiers who would row across the Channel and invade England. They weren't very good boats. Napoleon was fairly sure that at least 20,000 men would drown on the way over. "But I would lose that many in a battle anyway," he explained, and went on building. The English saw the boat building and prepared to fight back against Boney's invasion. All over England, men were pressed or drafted into the Navy and taught to be sailors on British warships that would fight against Napoleon. British soldiers readied themselves to fight off French invaders. Even England's farmers were ready to grab their pitchforks and fight against the French. When the time for invasion came, Napoleon ordered his admiral to sail the French warships out into the English Channel and fight against the English fleet. Once the channel was cleared of English warships, the flat, slow barges full of French soldiers could row safely across. The commander of the English fleet was Admiral Horatio Nelson, the same admiral who had beaten Napoleon once before at the Battle of the Nile. He sailed his own ships out to meet the French, with his flagship, the Victory, in the lead. The signal flags on the Victory spelled out, "England expects that every man will do his duty." The battle began off the coast of Spain. Nelson's ships outsailed and outfought the French. Not a single English ship sank, but 22 of Napoleon's ships had been captured. The rest fled. The boats with soldiers in them never even launched. Admiral Nelson had saved England from the new emperor, but during the battle, he was hit by a musket ball as he stood on the deck of his ship. Nelson died a few hours later. The French admiral died too. When he saw how badly he had been defeated, he killed himself. This sea battle, the Battle of Trafalgar, put limits on the new emperor's power. He would never take England. But over the next 10 years, Napoleon would do his best to spread his power across the rest of Europe.